Hello, 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 and welcome back to Divorce Happens, the podcast where we support you before, during, and after divorce with education, inspiration, a little bit of laughter, because as we know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. And speaking of fresh things, we're here today with one of our Fresh Starts experts who we adore, Whitney Cardosi. Whitney, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to be on. Thank you. And my name is Whitney. I live in the greater Boston area, but I grew up in Southern California. And I always mention that just because I think anyone that's experienced a big life transition, they know, how impactful that can be on your life. And so for me, like it was very transformative to move here 11 years ago. And basically, within the first couple years of moving here, we got married, got pregnant, bought a house, and in a way sort of started from scratch, right? It was a fresh start. And
Yeah.
that wasn't necessarily the reason that we moved here, but it created that opportunity for me anyways. And in the over the course of the last sort of 8 to 9 years, I've sort of progressed and transitioned in my career. So I worked in corporate. I was your average like 9 to 5. I was an account manager, sort of climbing that corporate ladder. And then after I had my first daughter, through my own health journey and learning kind of more around health and nutrition rooted in real whole foods versus what I grew up learning. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
43. I'm an 80s and 90s baby. I grew up reading 17 magazine, Self magazine, and there was always a new diet, like every subscription. And so I tried a lot of different things, but I'd
Yep.
never really just delved into the idea of eating clean whole foods. Through that journey on my own, I fell in love with the process. I fell in love with just the idea of nutrition and followed that journey into health coaching with women. And then a couple years ago, pivoted once again into working with more focused on families, moms specifically, and kids. And really, the reason behind that was I found after 5 or so years of coaching adult women, it didn't really matter what quote unquote diet they were following. It really came down to mindset and more beyond that, like unraveling the things that we learned as children via,
Mm.
health class, our doctors, our moms, magazines,
Yep.
television shows, all of
Yep.
those things. And really just became super passionate about wanting to have these conversations with kids, girls especially, but kids in general, so that they could grow up having a healthier relationship with food and view food as a source of nourishment, in a way to support our body as opposed to good, bad, evil, any of these things as a means to getting skinny. So
Mhm.
that was, because my daughter was getting older. She's almost 10. And so, yeah. But yeah, that's what I do now. So I teach cooking classes. I work with moms and daughters, and I'm sure we'll talk more about all those things in a minute.
Yeah, I love so much of what you said, and we appreciate you being at Fresh Starts because we love everything you do. But something you said really kind of was interesting to me in that, especially when we're going through big life transitions, whether it's a move or a divorce or new baby in the family, whatever it is, we tend to like overcomplicate things
Yeah.
sometimes, right? Especially with food, right? So we're like, oh, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And just going back to like your approach of like whole, clean food, which
Yeah.
isn't really that hard, it can really like ground us, right? Like during these big life transitions. And so, one of the things that I think a lot of women come to us because they're going through a divorce and it's super overwhelming. Not only are you going through the divorce process, but you're restructuring your family system, right? And
Yeah.
and you're becoming a single mom. Maybe even though you were acting like a single mom, you're actually becoming a single mom for the first time. You know, Having to feed children 3 times a day plus snacks plus yourself is a lot.
Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody that's going through like every shit storm possible right now? And they're like, but I also like don't want to be feeling crappy, right? Like I want to like be like feeling at least okay and making sure like I'm feeding my kids somewhat healthy food. What's that middle ground, Whitney?
Yeah. I think this is such a tough topic because I think there's different strategies that work for different people, right? And so there's your meal prepping strategy. There's all these different ways to do this. So for me, I found like really what it comes down to is having a super well stocked pantry and fridge. And again, it's going to look slightly different for everybody, but really at the core of it is keeping whole foods stocked in your pantry and your fridge, and doing your best to eliminate those highly processed foods. I don't necessarily mean packaged foods. Like, we're huge fans of packaged salads, and I'll talk about that
Mhm.
in a minute.
Mhm.
But keeping like things like rice, brown
Right.
rice, if you need to, instant rice, right? Like, I've been
Mhm.
leaning on that more, and while it might lack some of the nutrients that like a fresh non-cooked
Yeah.
rice might, it's still better than french fries every night. And
Right.
it's something that my kids will eat. And then stocking your fridge with and freezer with proteins and vegetables, and if you need to, leveraging online grocery shopping, right? Like, I
Mhm.
recently just started doing that, and I hemmed and hawed over it for so long about that little extra fees here and there, but honestly it has saved me so much time and
Mhm.
money. And so I recommend that. And so my point in that is, whether you do meal prep or whether you don't, if you have the right key ingredients in your food, in your
Yep.
fridge, in your pantry,
Yep.
then all it takes is quickly grabbing a complex carb, a protein, and if you have it, some produce or vegetables, throwing those things, together, and
Yep.
you're set. And you don't have to have a huge plan, in advance of doing that.
Absolutely. And like I mean, you and I have talked about this a lot, but like this concept of like fed is best for the
Yeah.
family, right? So like we're talking about really simple meals here, right? Like
Yeah.
chicken tenders with apple slices and rice, right? Whatever it
Yeah.
is. Like that's a meal, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing to feel bad about giving your children meals like that when you're going through or when you're not going through. I mean, that's just a delicious, healthy meal for everybody. So what are some things that you keep in your house, Whitney, that are just like staples that anybody's listening to this is like, okay, I'm gonna listen to this and make a little bit of a grocery list to go out later.
Yeah. So I would say, rice of some sort is, we always keep that, or any version of a high quality grain.
Right.
Like, if, rice, quinoa, whatever you
Mm-hmm.
prefer. I mean, there's other options out there as well, like, bulgur and things like that, but a lot of people like to keep it gluten free. So then you just want to keep mindful of that. Other bases, like, I always think of those as my base. Like, my complex carb is
Mm,
my base. We're big bowl people, so we eat a
yep.
lot of things out of a bowl.
We do too.
Um, Other bases would be like a tortilla, for example. I personally love the Siete brand tortillas that are gluten free and they keep in the freezer, which I love
Mm,
because you don't have
mm-hmm,
to worry about
mm-hmm,
getting through them at
mm-hmm.
any point. Sweet potatoes or potatoes are also a great
We
base.
do a lot of potatoes.
My 9-year old recently just decided she loves them, so we've been doing a lot of potatoes, a lot of roasted potatoes.
Yep.
Also, it's the season, right? In the summer, maybe not as much. So those are like kind of our base things. We always keep simple proteins in the freezer as well. So we're big Costco shoppers, or
Yep.
wherever you shop for big box stuff, or in quantity, bulk.
Yep.
And then we just freeze most of it right away, and then we take it out as we need it. So chicken breasts, um, ground turkey, chicken or beef, whatever your preference is. We usually keep turkey and beef in there. And then occasionally I'll buy fish. I love
Mm-hmm.
fish, but I don't know. My family gets picky about
No.
that sometimes. And if you're vegetarian, then some really great swaps for those. Of course, tofu. I always keep chickpeas on hand.
Yes.
Garbanzo beans. Those
Yes.
make a like those are my favorite
Me too.
animal protein substitutes. And then, then when I go to the grocery store, once a week or so, that's where I stock up with vegetables. I like to get like hearty vegetables that last a little bit longer. So broccoli, zucchini, and then of course just like your staple ones that my kids want to munch on, like
Yep.
carrots and cucumbers. Because while I and myself and my husband like, cooked vegetables, like I love roasted broccoli and all those
Mm-hmm.
things, at my kids' ages right now, they're 6 and 9. They don't love that, right? They'd way rather just dip a carrot in some ranch.
Mm,
So
mm-hmm. Don't we
I
all?
always give that as an option too.
Yep.
And so those are kind of like the key
Yeah, I
staples.
love
And then
that.
of course we always keep berries on hands. The kids snack on those all the
Always.
time.
Yeah.
And then also like nut butters. So my kids like
Mhm.
peanut butter. I like almond butter, those kinds of things. So
Yep.
those are, and Greek yogurt. That's another one I
Ooh,
always
that's a
keep.
great one.
So those are
Yeah,
some,
I mean, I love that. I'm a big fan of canned vegetables too. We do
yeah.
canned peas, canned corn.
Yep.
I even do like frozen French fries because you can bake them.
Yep.
Right? And, like, we love, like, frozen sweet potato fries. Uh, and the other thing that I used a lot, my kids probably never wanna see it again because I used it all the time during my divorce, was chicken sausage, pre-cooked chicken
Yeah.
sausage, which is really good. There's some really high quality brands. I used to chop it up and make it with a little pasta and vegetables and things like that.
Yep.
I would eat it with potatoes. So, there's so many, like, basics, but I think your point is, like, you need to be prepared. You don't have to meal plan, but just have the things in the house. Well, thankfully, you have a cookbook that helps us with all of this. So, what is your cookbook name and what does it do?
Yeah, so it's in the kitchen healthy meals that you'll actually enjoy. And again, like what we've talked about is really just the core of what it is, which is using simple staple ingredients and teaching you how to use those in an easy way. And while it might take a couple extra minutes, for example, to make your own salad dressing, it's the payoff that's so important, right? So the more that we can swap some of those processed convenience foods, I'm not trying to make anyone's life harder, but what is true is that when you do that, you're actually giving yourself back some extra energy and making yourself feel better so that you can,
Mhm.
maybe get through your day a little bit with a little bit more high energy. Um, so I kind of call it like your healthy clean eating bible because it has such a huge variety everywhere from
Yeah.
salad dressings to like a barbecue sauce, different sauces. We have breakfast items in there. I have like weeknight sweet tooth things that like little desserts that you can whip up real quick after the
Mhm.
kids go to bed. Of course, weeknight meals. I have some holiday meal options in there. I have a whole section on using protein powder because obviously that's a great convenient staple as
Mhm.
well. And so I think we have close to 100 recipes in there if you include the salad dressings and sauces, and that's available on Amazon. I think it's priced at $20 right now. So,
Yeah, yeah, we'll link it.
um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
one of the reasons I love your cookbook, I have a copy, is that it's really visually easy to read. You don't have to like take a lot of time to scan recipes. There's like awesome pictures. I love that you like laid it out so easily. Before we let you go, I want to pivot to one thing. One of the things you're passionate about is bringing moms and children together, especially moms and daughters, moms and sons too, but to spend time together to like build that relationship. And, during a divorce, especially, it can seem like your kids are driving you crazy and you just like want to get food on the table. But then I know from personal experience at the end of the day, you're like, God, I got through the whole day and didn't really spend time with my kids. Can you talk to us for a minute about bringing kids into the kitchen and how it may seem like a lot of work, but it's actually a great experience?
yeah, yeah. I'm so glad that you brought that up because I was having this conversation yesterday about, we as a society today, we want to be told how to do things to be successful, right? So, okay, I want to lose weight. So, what do I eat? When we
Right.
kind of are like missing the whole point. And if we go back to past generations, not that I want to regress, but if we go
Right.
back and
Yeah.
look at some of the experiences that were happening, maybe for our moms or even our grandmothers, they were spending time in the kitchen, right? And so when you get back to the root of like looking at food as nourishment and really experience the transformation of an ingredient into a meal, naturally there's health in that. And I think that I always equate like cooking in the kitchen with kids to like teaching your kids to tie their shoe, right?
Mm,
Like it's so much easier to buy the shoes without the ties, which is what I tend to do,
yes.
or to do it for them because you're rushing out of the house. But if you take the time to teach them, then you're actually giving yourself
Mm,
back
right.
more
Right.
time in the future. And also there's a ton of studies that show, the benefits, emotional,
Yeah.
social benefits of spending time and doing those types of things with your kids. And so what my point is it's not about having to go to back to this antiquated view of what women should be doing in the kitchen, but it is getting back to the emotional connection with families, whether
Yeah.
that's whatever that looks like, right?
Mhm.
Whether you have
Mhm.
grandparents in the home, whether it's just a
Yep.
single mom or dad,
Yep.
it's getting back to that connection around spending time together, spending time around food and what that does physiologically to you when you look at food that way and you spend the time creating it. And then not to mention there's so much research about the positive benefits of children of being in the kitchen around self-efficacy, their confidence to
Mhm.
do things, and then
Mhm.
also of course their willingness to try new foods. So I mean, I could go on
Yeah.
and on about the importance of that
Yeah.
amongst other enrichment things, right? But the benefit about cooking with your kids is that you get to experience the payoff of that relationship that you build with them. And like imagine, now it's like when as your kids grow, especially if you stay in a household where maybe it is just you as a mom or dad or a single mom or dad, when kids get into that 9, 10, 11 year old, they can start doing things for themselves. And now
Yeah.
you're giving back extra time when they can wake up in the morning and they can make their own toast or
Yeah.
they can scramble their own eggs, or
Yep.
maybe even once or twice a week they're in charge of dinner.
Mm.
And so even though it feels like you might be slowing down, in the long run, you're giving both of you back
Mm.
some independence and freedom, which is
Oh,
going
I
to
love
pay
that.
off. And obviously, especially if you're going through something like this,
Yeah.
a divorce, that's going to give you some extra time.
I love that so much. And I will say before we go, like, if you're a single dad listening to this, and maybe it's the first time in a long time you've been spending concentrated time with your kids, um, every other weekend, start cooking together, right?
Yeah,
It's a
learn
fantastic
together.
learn together. And like, you have to be patient, you have to put some music on, whatever it is. But like, it's a great activity to do. If you are a little uncomfortable kind of figuring out the new relationship with your kids, I would say cook together. I just,
Yeah.
it's a good
And
idea.
even just like starting with basic things like teaching them how to use the microwave, teaching them how to use the
Yep.
air fryer. It doesn't have to be teaching them how to make pasta from scratch,
Yep.
like
Yep.
it's just
Yep.
getting confident in the kitchen and being giving them some self
I love that.
independence. Yeah.
I love that. Before we let you go, Whitney, if somebody's listening to this going through a divorce, what would be some words of encouragement that you could leave them with?
I think, coming from my realm and what I do in this world, it's just reminding ourselves that we are worthy and that part of showing ourselves worth is taking care of ourselves, right? And so whatever that looks like for you, but in my world of nutrition, it is taking that extra time to make sure that you are fueling yourself and your family so that you can support
Yeah.
your emotional and mental well-being, and also that you're doing your best, right? That's like my favorite thing I ever heard and read in a Brene Brown book was everybody's just doing their best. And so just to
Yeah.
give yourself some self-love and patience and just keep doing the best that you can.
Well, I love that so much. Thank you so much, Whitney. This was really invaluable information. You can catch Whitney over at Fresh Starts Registry in the Expert Guide, and we appreciate you and being part of our community. Thanks so much, Whitney.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.